What's up, ballers? And let me hear you holler in the comments. Welcome back to another episode of Hoops Variety Hour with your hosts, Jacob and Cole.
On this week's episode, we're going to be looking at Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, ranking the top 10 players based on our personal opinion. Now, we want to offer a disclaimer that this is, of course, our opinion.
There is a PGR ranking of these players as well, and it wouldn't be interesting to just put out the PGR rankings because why would we do that? So we put out our opinions.
This is also based on not just necessarily exactly what tournament results they've gotten, but maybe the talent level we think they have,
head-to-head
matchups, because I think a lot of these players, especially in the top 5, it gets really hard to rank them because they're so close, and you have to start looking at, in my opinion, you have to start looking more at the head-to-head matchups of what's going on.
Like, there's a lot of factors to consider.
Like, how much difference is there really between, like, Tweak and... Well, we'll get into it. Tweak and, like, Meister, if Meister's winning, but then Tweak has better results. It's like all this different stuff.
It's tough to rank.
Yes. That being said, I guess we'll start with my list and then move on to yours.
Sounds good.
So from 10 to 1, my list is number 10, Esam. Number 9, DeBuzz. Number 8, T, the Pac-Man player, not the Link player, who is also really good. And Japanese, although T is the second best Japanese player behind number 7, Zachary. Number 6, Samsara, controversial pick.
Wow.
Number 5, Meister. Number 4, Mars. Number 3, Nairo. Number 2, Tweak. And number 1, obviously, of course, to everyone's shock, MK Leo.
Very interesting list you got there, Cole.
Oh, I know it is.
Knee-jerk reaction. Some disrespect on Samsara's name, but we'll get into that in a second. Now, on to my list. Starting at number 10, we have Gluttony. At number 9, we have T, the Pac-Man player, of course. At number 8, we have DeBuzz. At number 7, we have Meister. At number 6, we have Zachary. At 5, this may be controversial, Tweak. At number 4, Nairo. At number 3, we have Mars. And at number 2, we have Samsara. And at number 1, of course, MK Leo, the god.
All right. Well, let's talk about our most controversial picks first. So, do you want to start with mine putting Samsara at 6?
Yes,
or you're putting
100%.
Tweak at
That is
5?
the most controversial
You
one
don't think
here.
Tweak at 5 is just as controversial as Samsara at 6?
No, definitely
Really?
not. Definitely not.
Really?
Well, judging based on the PGR rankings, you've moved Samsara down 4 spots from 2 to 6.
All right.
That's a much bigger gap than 3 to 5.
Now, let me explain my reasoning, okay?
Okay.
Samsara is obviously an amazing player, except when I really look at how he sort of compares to other players in the top 10, not even just the top 5, in the top 10, we see that he has losses to T, he has consistent losses to Mars, consistent losses to Meister, consistent losses to Leo, which we're not going to penalize anyone for consistent losses to Leo. If anything, we reward Samsara for the fact that he has beaten Leo and players like Meister, players like Zachary. Mars. Oh, we'll get into that, but Mars's legacy would be totally different if he didn't have that one win against Leo, and never did it again. But that's neither here nor there. He has consistent losses against Nairo. He loses to players outside of the top 10 all the time, like players like Wadi, Elegant, MVD. I just think Samsara, while he reaches probably the highest peaks of any player in the top 10 besides Leo, getting first more consistently than any other player besides Leo, he also just has these huge dips in the valleys. Like at main stage, he got 13 through 16, Frostbite, same thing. He didn't make top 8 at Let's Make Big Moves. He didn't make top 8 at CEO. Like all these huge tournaments, Prime
CEO
Saga.
2019.
Yeah.
CEO 2020 was a different story.
Well, listen. Like I said, I'll give him credit. He's got first at Fight for 95, Shine 2019, Defend the North, Kawaii Con. Like big events, good events. Like props to him. And he, of course, obviously, very importantly, has beaten the best player, Leo. So like, really big ups to him, but I just think when you're trying to rank these guys together, eventually you have to say, well, okay, how often can he beat these guys if he has to face them in a bracket? And I just don't think that if you put these guys in the bracket, Samsara would come out on top. I just think he would lose to too many of these people.
I mean, I think a good thing to point to with this point is the most recent CEO Dreamland in 2020, where your boy Samsara won the tournament.
Wait, there is a huge asterisk on that tournament because most of the top players weren't even in it because of the quarantine. He beat Cola in grand finals. Not that Cola's not a great player, and obviously he made grand finals at a huge tournament, and then he started tearing it up online, which is, we're not going to consider online for any of these rankings.
Because online's trash.
Online is trash, and like, it's not that it means nothing, but it's just, we're not going to try to factor it in, right? But I really think, like, I'll give him credit for all of his first place finishes, including CEO, but I think we just have to recognize that at CEO, there was no Meister, there was no Leo, there was no Tweak, there's basically no other top 5 players.
I mean, Mars was there.
Mars was there, but as we're going to discuss later, Mars is crazy overrated.
I disagree with that. Mars also took third at that tournament, but...
Lost to Cola.
He did. But now getting to Mars, a player I have at number 3.
No. We're not gonna move to Mars. We're gonna move on to Tweak, the player you have at number 5. What the fuck is that shit?
Well, the reason
what the
I
heck
have
is that
Tweak
stuff?
at number 5 is, although Tweak in the past has had very good results, at the end of 2019, moving into 2020, he's really been slipping in the rankings. You know, Tweak is good, but loses to Nairo consistently. He also...
Top 5 player.
Yes, Nairo is good. That's why I have Nairo above Tweak, because Nairo beats him. You know, I think he plays very close against Mars and Samsara,
but consistently beats them.
I think the key factor here is that Samsara and Mars pull more first place finishes, and they've done that more recently. That is why I have them a little bit higher than Tweak. I put Mars and Samsara very close to each other because I think those two are super close. They're both maybe a little streakier players.
Here's what I think.
They're both a little streakier than Tweak. I'll give you that.
Mars and Samsara, I think, have a higher chance of beating MK Leo, but against the rest of the field are worse than players like Meister, Nairo.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I mean, what I think the factor is between these two, which I think you can argue it either way, is consistency versus kind of the peaks and valleys players. Mars and Samsara have very, very high peaks where if they're in a tournament and they're playing, you know, and they're
at their highest level,
and they're gonna run through that tournament. You saw it with Mars too in that tournament where he beat MK Leo. Mars destroyed. He wiped the floor with everyone he played in that tournament.
And he did it with a low tier character, am I right?
Of course. But he wiped the floor with everyone in that tournament. Samsara does the same thing where when he's playing really well, he's just gonna wipe the floor with everyone. And I think
you could say the same thing about every player in the top 5 though. I mean, in the top 10, or no, not top 10.
Yes, but I just don't think Tweak's highs are as high as theirs. I mean, his lows maybe a little less so. He's a little bit more consistent.
Let me ask you a question then. Why isn't Esam in your top 10? He's beaten Leo.
The reason I didn't put Esam in the top 10 is, I mean, purely, I guess, just like based on number 1 results. I just don't think Esam has as many. I guess he could.
But he's won a bigger event than like the consistency that
I was considering putting Esam at number 10, but I put Gluttony there because although I know what Cole's going to argue here, the tournaments that Gluttony plays in don't matter as much, but it's undeniable watching the results that Gluttony has. He just has so many first place finishes. I mean, I have the list right here of all the tournaments he's won. They're not important or as big of tournaments, but there's just first place after 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 first place, and I think you need to reward that.
One major that Gluttony has won. One major. Can you find it?
Might take me a little look.
That's in Oof. When you have to search through the haystack that is his first.
I mean, there's so many
to
tournaments
find the needle.
There's so many tournaments.
When you have to look through the haystack that is his first place finishes at minor tournaments to find any important results at majors, you know it's fool's gold with Gluttony. Not that he's not a great player. I just don't think you can put him above players like Esam or DeBuzz or T even, right?
I mean,
because like
the only player I have in front of is Esam,
because then really you penalize players like T and Zachary and even Quick, ya boy, for not being able to travel and not being able to go to those tournaments.
True.
So even though he's consistently competing at a high level, I just don't see him beating. And then really, when you put him to the test of like, all right, well, how often does he even beat Samsara, Meister, Mars, Nairo, Tweak, Leo, even Esam, who Pikachu, granted, has a great matchup against Wario, but like, when you match him up against the rest of these players, I don't know. I just don't think he would beat any of them. And I think you have to start considering that when you start splitting hairs between these great players.
Going back to your point on Gluteny, it is really unfortunate that other players don't get to travel as much as him, but I do think you have to reward the fact that he's at these tournaments putting up results. And I think this brings a perfect segue to talk about Zachary and T, who are players that I think are a little low in the PGR because they don't travel.
Zachary, by the way, someone who I was really wavering with. Like, I put him at 7, but I kind of
at one point he also had Zachary at 2.
I had Zachary at 2 because I think he's that talented. I think he's like
very
that
talented.
Kind of potential.
And I think a perfect comparison between Zachary and like T and these Japanese players is talking about AMSA in Melee, the European AMSA.
The European AMSA,
yes.
not
the
Japanese
red
Yoshi AMSA.
The European AMSA, sorry. But if you were to watch Armada's reaction to Mewtwo King's top 10 list of Melee players, one of the points that he brought up was that at one point, European AMSA was probably good enough to be one of the top players in the world, but the people just didn't get to see that because he didn't travel to the US. He played in only European tournaments. He didn't travel to the US to compete against the top players. Mewtwo King at the time was the number 1 in the world, and AMSA was arguably 2, maybe even 1, but you just couldn't compare them because they didn't play each other because he wasn't traveling. I think Zachary and T, although they get to travel a little bit more, it's the same thing. They just aren't in enough of these tournaments to compare them to push them up the rankings because they don't get to play them enough.
There's also something kind of interesting about all the Japanese players, I think, is that they sort of get, it's weird, right? Because they sort of get penalized for taking these losses to other Japanese players who aren't ranked as highly, even though they're playing them over and over and over
exactly.
again.
They have
so
the
meta is so much more developed between them.
Yep.
So the players get, obviously in Smash, the more you play a certain player, the more you get used to the style, the more the meta develops between those two players. Whereas when they come from Japan to the US, it really feels like that's the time, like you have that set in those games to really try to make your mark on that tournament.
No, 100%, and I think that really, that's part of the reason that they're so low in the PGR, and in my list, I had Zachary at 6, and I think Zachary and T are, 2 players that play really well in Japan, and when they come to the US, they play well, but it's just they don't quite have as much matchup experience as the people here playing against each other do, and they're just really good.
You don't get trophies for second place, but Zachary has had so many runs where he was like he had 2 game 5s with Leo. He's all these runs where it really looked like he was ready to take down the tournament, and then it was a heartbreaker. So that's why I find it really hard to rank Zachary.
No, Zachary and these Japanese players are tough, and I think another good point on this is it's just really unfortunate that the Smash community and all these tournaments are really underfunded, and it's not worth it for a lot of these players to show up to these tournaments because they're losing money. They have to spend so much to get over from Japan.
Did you know
or Meister from Mexico? They have to pay so much money to travel up here, and then money that they win from the tournament, sometimes it doesn't even recoup the losses from coming.
Did you know in Japan they're actually not allowed to have prize pools with money for the Japanese players?
Isn't it rice?
It's rice. They get paid in rice bags because if you put money in the pool, then it's considered gambling, and that's illegal in Japan.
That's absolutely whack. And at this point, I'd like to give a quick shout out.
Thanks, Nintendo.
Quick shout out to my boy Moist Critical, aka Charlie, aka Penguin Z0, for funding the quarantine series and putting some more money into the Smash community, because I think that's really helping some of these players out. And
shout outs to Le'Veon Bell too.
Yeah. Shout out to all the people just funding the Smash community. It's just such a fun online game to watch, and the more funding and the more it spreads, the better.
Totally. All right. Any final thoughts on the lists?
I think the last player that we have to discuss
is Meister.
I
knew it was gonna come to this
because Meister's really good, and he's definitely taken in a lot of these guys, but think you might have him a little bit high.
A little bit high at number 5.
Yeah.
Here's
I think I might
my
have to do
here's
some
my
Game & Watch bias.
listen. I'm gonna get called out for Game & Watch bias. I'm gonna get called out because I think a lot of people try to discredit what Meister does. But I think I'm gonna go again back to that argument I had about like when you get down to players that are this good, what is the difference maker? And the difference maker is your head-to-head matchups with the other top 5, 6, 7 players. And you look at what Meister does. He takes L's to Leo. As we mentioned before, we're not going to penalize players for taking L's to Leo, but he really needs that one Leo win. Now, Mars, as I was saying before, takes L's to Leo too. In fact, he takes them constantly. And he takes L's to other players too. I won't get too much into it because Mars is super good and he's going to beat a lot of these top 10 players a lot of the time. But I feel like his legacy was forever altered for the better by that one incredible run he had where he 3-1'd Leo in winners. Or did he?
3-0.
3-0. He 3-0'd him?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous tournament.
Mars,
he was
Mars
on
honestly
fire.
just
Some of
absolutely wiped the floor.
Yeah,
with
just some
every
of the best ultimate I think I've ever seen anyone play in terms of just the pure dominance he had in that tournament. But you look at what Meister does head to head with Tweak. Before he was taking losses early in Ultimate, but lately, frankly they haven't been like particularly close. Like a few game 5s, but it really seems like Meister is in control of the Tweak matchup at this point against Mars. Typically in Mars' favor. I personally think that matchup is booty, but I also don't really use that as an excuse really. Against Nairo, it's very even, I think. I think Nairo has the better of him most of the time. That's why I have those players ahead of Meister. Against Samsara, dominates him. Against T, he wins. The Buzz, Esam, all the same. Zachary, actually, he loses a lot too, which is another reason Zachary is so good. I just want to put him ahead.
And Zachary should just play more.
It's just hard because Zachary doesn't have the results to back up that top 5 placement.
It really is.
But I don't know. I see Meister's consistency at tournaments and his really competitive and in some cases dominating records against people like Samsara and Esam. I know people will point to matchups. Peach Game & Watch matchup is not actually that bad for Peach. I just think that, it's not.
But that's for another topic.
That's another time.
Maybe Cole
the
put
Pikachu
out
matchup. The
a Game
Pikachu
& Watch matchup chart for
the
us.
Pikachu matchup is a different
like to see
story.
that.
That one's pretty Game & Watch favored. But yeah, I could see Meister maybe going, dropping below Samsara. But I think it's hard with Samsara when he I just think it's hard.
No.
I just think it's hard. I think it's really hard to rank these players. I think you're really splitting hairs at a certain point, and I think I just want to reward Meister, especially since I see them as one place apart. I just want to reward him for dominating that head-to-head.
Fair enough. I can see that point, but on my list, of course, I have Zachary slightly in front, and Sam, Sora, I have him way up the list. But
yes,
of course, we could discuss this all day. But we'd love to hear your comments, so please let us know what you think of our lists. Don't roast us too hard, but let us know for sure.
Once again, this is our opinions. We're just trying to create some discussion.
Exactly. Let us know what you think too in the comments.
Definitely.
Is the PGR correct? Would you maybe place some other people in different spots?
And what do you think about the other Japanese players in the PGR, like Kameme and one letter T, yeah. And even up and coming players like
Proto Banham.
Proto Banham's not up and coming. I was thinking of the Fox, the Pasire Man.
Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Really
Pasire
interesting name, Pasire Man or
Whatever.
Pricer Me and Minishmin. But yeah, how do you think that those players are positively or negatively affected by sort of the traveling restrictions and sort of us giving them credit versus them not really having the results in the US? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us at Our Hoops on Twitter. And have a wonderful day. Stay safe.
Drop a like if you want to see Noon put out a Game & Watch matchup chart.